I said, okay, my infatuation.
How you feel, Mike? Awesome, dude.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Sup Talk. I'm your host, Buddy Ray, my partner,
Mike.
So the last couple weeks, we've been doing some discussions on beginner mindset and what a new gym goer or somebody new to training and nutrition, some questions they might have or some situations they might experience. Today, we're going to go a little bit more in depth on that and get into a little bit more of the highly exotic part of training and what things go hand in hand with that. And what I mean by that is anabolic steroids, peptides, which is the new latest and greatest craze, as well as non-hormonal anabolics, and what products might be best for you and some things to be aware of when approaching these routes of bodily experimentation. So real quick before we dive into that, peptides are a thing that are brand new. They're really popular on the market, but a lot of people don't understand the difference between anabolic steroids and peptides. So Mike, would you care to enlighten our viewers on what the difference is between an anabolic steroid and a peptide?
Yeah. So from what I gathered and, my understanding, actual anabolics are pretty much enhancing your body versus peptides are pretty much turning on signals and kickstarting signals and receptors, getting them back into gear versus, like I said, steroids is pretty much enhancing everything. So that's why a lot of times people have you cycle them because your receptors start getting cloudy and all of that. And then, yeah, from my understanding, that's what I gathered. The main difference is that's why when people ask me, hey, is peptides pretty much the same thing as steroids? And I tell them, no, it's not. It's just pretty much kickstarting your natural, cells and your signals in your body to pretty much get back into gear, like I said.
Yeah, so I think like one way to think about it a little bit more is peptides already exist in your body. Your body already has these things. Is what we're doing when we're injecting peptides is we're sending fresh signals to tell the body what to do, because just like anything else, if you have a phone, well, hey, your phone is only good for so many years before the inside wiring and the mechanics of that phone start breaking down and falling apart, right? Same thing with our bodies. We're able to operate amazingly when we're children. We heal amazing, we recover faster, we sleep better. All these things are great, right? Because we're young and our bodies are fresh and the signals are strong. As we get older, those signals get weaker. And some of them, if the signal has to travel so far and the signal is already weak, well, it might not make it all the way to where it needs to be. Hence, we take the peptides and they enhance the signals, they send stronger signals. If our body forgot how to produce a certain signal, the peptide can reintroduce a way of creating that signal and sending it to where it needs to be. As opposed to anabolic steroids, which is something that you're going to take that, like Mike said, is going to greatly enhance certain things, whether it be strength or aesthetics, hardness, fullness. Those are what anabolic steroids are focused on, but those are replacing things that naturally occur in your body. So when you take testosterone, you're replacing your natural testosterone with synthetic testosterone. With peptides, you are just improving and strengthening the signals that your body already has. So another thing, as the past few weeks that we've been talking about aggressive compounds and anabolics and stuff, we did touch base on getting your blood work done. And a lot of people don't take that seriously. A lot of people probably don't really understand why it should be taken seriously. So, Mike, do you want to touch base a little bit on what getting your blood work done is going to tell you about your body and how that might dictate what compounds are better for you or not good for you?
Yeah. So your blood panel, whenever you go get it, they're going to ask you like what you're looking for. I always ask them, or I tell anyone that's getting their blood panel, ask for the full thing. Your kidneys, your livers, your estradiol, your tests, your free tests, your thyroid, your TSH, that all of that plays a role. And as far as like your blood work, that's how you can gauge what you need to take or even how much to take as far as like you starting off and like what you need to implement, you know what I mean, to get everything back into range. If you plan on running like a full-blown cycle that's like almost like a gram or two of gear, you know, you can pretty much gauge, okay, if I'm gonna do that, I might need to take this type of AI to get my estradiol in range. And I always tell people too, when you're on a cycle, maybe within like the 8-week to 6-week mark, go get your blood work again to see where your levels are at compared to when you first started your cycle. And that's where you can gauge everything as well and adjust from there.
Yeah, real quick, I'll share a brief story about myself and my journey over the last 19, 20 years with anabolics and all these different products. So when I got into, I would say like my mid 30s, you know, I think I was about 33, 34 maybe. I had a bad car accident where I got hit by a car, tore 2 quad tendons. I had to take some time off from the gym. All through my 20s, I loved taking test-cypionate with Masteron and Anavar. It doesn't aromatize. I didn't have to worry about the bitch tits or the gyno or the crazy estrogen levels. It always made me hard. It always made me dry. It always made me look real good and lean. It was just my favorite stack to run, right? It was just an amazing summer stack. It's what I really like to do. So when I came out of this injury with the 2 torn quad tendons, right away I said, okay, I'm back in the gym. I'm feeling good. I'm training good. My nutrition's getting back on point. Let me go ahead and get back on a cycle. So I went, grabbed a bottle of Cypionate, grabbed some Masteron, grabbed some Anavar, enough to run about 8 weeks. I usually run it 12 to 16 weeks. At the 8-week mark, I just wasn't getting the same results as I was getting before. And of course, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, it can't be something wrong with me. This has to be bad gear. I got some bad stuff. So I talked to a friend of mine, Nick Vega over with EverTitan, and let him know. I said, you know what, man? I hear you preaching about TRT. I'm 34 years old. I just went through 8 weeks of Cypionate, Masteron, and Anavar. None of it seemed to be working the right way. I'm not feeling better. I'm not looking better. I'm still tired all the time. I think the gear is bad. I'm ready to get on TRT, so I know I'm on good stuff. And he said, yeah, man, sounds great. Let's get your blood work done first, and then we can go from there. So he set up my blood work. I went and got my blood work done. And a couple of days later, my buddy Nick called me, and he says, hey, man, what all are you taking right now? And I let him know I'm taking test-cypionate, about, I think I was taking 400 milligrams a week. Then I was running Masteron and Anavar with it at the same time, and I let him know, like, hey, I'm doing it, and I'm not getting any of the positive results. I don't even feel like I'm on anything. And he says, well, I'm looking at your blood panel, and your blood panel says you are on stuff. We can clearly see the elevated levels in your testosterone, but your thyroid is low. So my blood panel is letting him know my thyroid is low, and because my thyroid was low or misfiring, that all the gear I was taking was not converting appropriately in my body. So even though I was putting everything in, it wasn't getting broken down and put into a manner that my body could absorb it and take the full effect of it. So right away, he said, hey, we're going to put you on some levothyroxine, which is the same as T3, right?
Yeah, T3.
So some T3, as well as putting me on HCG and taking over all my protocols. He put me on 200 milligrams a week of test-cypionate. But when I started taking that levothyroxine for my thyroid to help get my thyroid back in check, immediately, within 2 to 3 weeks, instantly I started feeling better. I started sleeping better. I was more productive with less sleep. And the body fat started to melt away. I started to get tighter, fuller. All the positive benefits I was looking for immediately came back into view as soon as I got my thyroid checked, but I would have never known to get my thyroid checked if I didn't get my blood panel done. Now, just to elaborate on that, Mike had touched on an AI. Mike, for those who don't know, what does AI mean?
It's a aromatizing inhibitor. So whenever I first got into like getting on cycles and everything, I was misguided. A lot of times people are like, oh, you need to take a Novadex, and then like there wasn't a actual protocol or like a direct protocol to follow. It was pretty much if you feel some type of sensitivity, you take it. But as I progressed and learned a lot more from coaches and just, you know, researching, Novadex is typically planned for like post-cycle therapy. That's where I feel like it's more beneficial. But on cycle, there's two type of AIs that are out there that are pretty similar, but it's based on preference. There's Arimidex and there's Aromasin. And those pretty much keep your estradiol in range. Again, based on how often you take it is on your blood panel. If your estradiol is pretty much elevated and it's elevated for very easily, then you would probably have to take it, you know, every 2 days, maybe every other day. Sometimes people don't even need them because there's other gear that you can take to pretty much, you know, knock your estradiol down. And don't get it, you know, confused. Estradiol is not an enemy. Like, you do need to have a little bit of estradiol in your system. You don't want to just tank it and crash it. But that's typically what an AI is.
Yeah, so and just to touch base on that, that's another big part of getting your blood work done. So for me and my family, estrogen runs a little bit high. As soon as I started puberty, I started to feel sensitivity and notice like some little like breast buds starting to form. Obviously, because I'm not a girl, it didn't enhance, but it was still there and I could still feel some sensitivity. So naturally, when I started taking gear, running more aggressive compounds, the gyno or the bitch tits as they're referred to, they would flare up and I would feel it and you could see it. So for years, I was always chasing different methods of keeping that under control. And for a long time, I was told like, hey man, if you're having trouble with estrogen, I mean, you could take your anastrozole, you could take your Novadex or tamoxifen or whatever. Then they said, well, hey, why don't you just try letrozole? That should take care of it right out the gate. So for years, my AI, for me, because I knew estrogen was a little bit more prominent in me, I would run letrozole. Well, when I went and got my blood work done, and I was talking to some guys who obviously know a little bit more than I do, they were letting me know how bad it was for me to take that letrozole, because that's exactly what it was doing. The letrozole kills your estrogen. And you don't want to kill the estrogen, you just want to have it balanced and in control. So for years, I was just taking the wrong type of AI and probably really messing with my hormone levels and who knows what other things it was affecting. But because I didn't know appropriately, I was going down the wrong rabbit hole for a pretty long time. Now that I have those things in check, I feel like my body operates better and I feel better. Another thing that the blood work is going to tell you is there's multiple pathways of estrogen. So I take anastrozole, but once I got on that, I still felt some sensitivity. I knew I didn't want to get on letrozole. So we redid my blood panel, and my the person who was helping me read my blood panels was able to look at it and say, oh man, your prolactin levels are high. So there's different types of levels, right? And you say, well, since your prolactin is high, we're going to go ahead and put you on cabergoline as well. So for my AI, I actually take 2 with my TRT therapy. And the 2 that I take is anastrozole and cabergoline. And taking those 2 together, I feel no sensitivity. I have no issues. I have no flare-ups. It's been an awesome, amazing process. But like I said, none of that I wouldn't have even been aware of any of that if it wasn't for the blood panels. And that's why they're so important. They let you know what your body needs, what's hurting your body, and what you need to take to get certain things in check and get the levels balanced the right way. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna just touch up on like prolactin when he brought it up. So I'm sure everyone heard of this one compound that everyone loves, and it elevates your prolactin levels tremendously, which is tren. It can be either tren E, tren A, doesn't matter. But a lot of times people think an AI is going to help with tren and the sensitivities and all of that, but it's actually caber. Caber will get your body back into range as far as sensitivity. And the sensitivity, if anybody's ever experienced when you're on tren, is very painful. Someone could just barely graze your chest and it just hurts. And I have a lot of guys that ask me pretty much when they're just doing their first cycle and they're just blasting, testing tren, they ask me, hey, what's going on? I don't know what's wrong. I always ask them, have you checked your blood levels? And are you on AI? Are you even on caber? I would say 90% of the people I speak to do not know what Caber is, or what it does as well. And it pretty much lowers your prolactin levels, so it's back in range, and that sensitivity kind of like diminishes.
So another thing that we get approached about and we talk to a lot of people about, and it doesn't necessarily, it does predominantly fall on the younger guys because they're so aggressive and hungry about making the progress. But I deal with this same question through all age ranges. And it's as soon as somebody gets in the gym, they might be in the gym for 60 days. They've been in there for 2 months, and already they're hunting for the most aggressive compounds to make changes in their body. But the only negative of that is if you get on super aggressive compounds right out the gate, you're never really able to take your body to the full potential and then enhance it, because you're just enhancing and you really never know where your natural threshold is. Personally, I don't think that's the right way. I think you should definitely get at least 6 months of good nutrition and hard training under your belt before you start experimenting with exotic compounds. And when you start to experiment with those exotic compounds, make sure you take it in steps. Often I meet younger guys and right away they want to get on SARMs. Oh, what SARM is this? I heard this SARM is good, because to them, a SARM is not as aggressive as an anabolic steroid. There's no needle involved. It's usually done in a capsule or a sublingual. And it definitely is going to yield the results they want. But the reality is you can do so much more for your body by starting with a non-hormonal anabolic, which isn't going to play with your hormones. It's not going to give you crazy strength gains, but it will help you get the maximum potential out of your body where it's at. And the food that you're intaking, if your food intake is on point, it will still help you gain quality muscle if you just give it time to do what it does. And once you've reached the max threshold with those natural anabolics and your natural diet, and you've given it more than 60 days, because anything worth having usually takes a little bit of time to acquire. So trust that process at least for 6 months, and trying to take your body as far as you can before you're aggressively seeking these other exotic compounds. And real quick, we'll touch on something else. A lot of people view SARMs as the next step before getting fully invested in injectable anabolics. Just a real quick way, some way to think about it. I'm not saying that SARMs are better or worse. I'm saying that they do have great results, but they also can be a little bit more toxic in some aspects, because if you're taking an injectable, it's only making one pass through the liver. If you're taking anything oral, whether it be a SARM or an oral anabolic steroid, those things are going to make 2 passes through the liver. So you need to make sure you're taking liver care. You need to make sure you're taking organ care. And you just need to be aware that just because they might be an easier step doesn't mean they're always the safer, healthier step. Just something to be mindful of, guys.
Yeah. And I would say if anybody plans on, hopping on a cycle or anything like that, because I'm pretty sure anyone's just you're gonna do what you want to do. Just start with the basic low levels. Like when I first started, I just started off with like a little base level of test. And I've dabbled it in the 2 different tests that everyone pretty much talks about is test C and test E. I prefer test E. And when I did test, I pretty much start off with a half a cc a week. Then I bumped it up, and I kept bumping up until I found the sweet spot. And of course I got my blood work. And then that was like my first cycle. And then whenever I hopped on my second cycle, that's when I pretty much, experimented with other compounds that I felt was pretty much beneficial for myself as far as the look and the feel that I'm going for. So I always tell people, start with the most simple cycle and then pretty much work your way up. Don't just go out the gate with just 4 or 5 compounds, just blasting every, compound and not knowing what direction you're trying to go with it.
And respect your off-cycle protocols as well. You know what I mean? A lot of people don't realize how easy it is to crash levels and to abuse the body by not letting those receptors recover, by not letting them clear out. And that goes with anything, whether it be SARMs, anabolic steroids, pre-workout, all those things. The receptors is like a coffee filter. You know what I mean? If you just use the same coffee filter every day, you never change it. Well, that coffee, it doesn't hit as hard, and some of the good parts of that coffee get stuck in the filter. But if you keep that filter clean and you make sure you change it regularly, well, then your coffee comes out stronger and more powerful. And that's the same thing with our bodies. We're just trying to make sure that you're giving all the money and time you're investing in these products and in the training. You want to make sure you're getting the most out of it, and it would suck to cut yourself short because you couldn't stay off of something for an additional 4 to 8 weeks. So another thing just to be mindful of.
Yeah.
Justin, how are we looking on time? 20. All right, awesome, guys. So we appreciate y'all coming and checking out what we have to say, our little spiel about being mindful about anabolics and aggressive supplements. Again, guys, please, if y'all have any questions, if there's anything that you'd like to see us discuss or to see us talk about or to give our experience on, please send us some questions. You can send them to our personal Instagrams. You can send them to our company emails, through any of the social media pages. We're excited to be doing this. We're excited to share the info. Yeah, guys. So we got some more good stuff coming out. Manimal website is going to be launching soon. The Elite Elixir website is going to be, it was available. It should be available again here by the end of the week. And we just thank you all for your support. Mike, you got anything else?
No, that's pretty much it. I know we went over, the basic, approach on getting on a cycle. But if you guys want to know, dive deeper into it as far as like durations of cycles and like, anything that has to do with it, I'm sure you guys are interested in that. Feel free to reach out and ask, specific questions on that.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, hey, we appreciate y'all taking the time to listen to us and to support the channel. And please give us a like, a share, and a follow. Subscribe, and we'll see y'all next week.